Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.
And welcome to another edition of the Autistic Delicatessen, your food and drinks podcast. I'm your host, Larrnell, along with Nikko and Rachel Ann. And Shalise and Melissa are away on this episode. But Rachel Ann, who's going to be our guest on today's show?
We are super excited. I'd like everybody to meet Ashra Louisa, based in sunny Los Angeles. And she is a brilliant mind behind Autistic After Hours, a podcast that dives deep into the wild and wonderful world of neurodivergent life. Diagnosed at 24, she's made it her mission to create affirming spaces where autistic adults can drop the mask, skip the small talk, and get real. Whether she's facilitating support groups, unpacking masking culture on YouTube, or lighting up your feed on Instagram, Ashra brings heart, humor, and a whole lot of insight. So if you've ever felt like the odd one out in a world built for sameness, you'll feel right at home in Ashra's orbit. Buckle up. It's about to get delightfully neurodivergent. Welcome, Ashra.
Thank you for having me. That was such a lovely intro.
We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah, because usually Rachel Ann is good with that stuff. That's why I have her as a co-host for that, Ashra.
Yeah, that was so nice. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So, Ashra, you were diagnosed with autism at 24. So I'm just wondering, before we get into the food and drink stuff, like how was that journey for you? Because I know that on your first episode, there's a whole episode that she has on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts that you can check out. But how was that journey for you to really recognize during COVID that you were even autistic? Did you have any inklings before of that?
Well, I think for my whole life, I felt like there was something different. And people kind of made that clear to me that they noticed it. People often called me weird or odd, and could never really explain why they were calling me that or why they thought that about me. And it always really, really bothered me. So, because of that, I spent a huge portion of my life, especially in college, trying to figure out what was going on. And that's why I mastered in psychology. And my major in my undergrad was psychology because it was always kind of this journey of trying to figure myself out. And eventually, it was actually at the end of college that I learned about autism for the first time. And before that, I had only known about uh, more so like stereotypical characteristics of autism and presentations. So it was at the end of college where I learned about more non-stereotypical presentations and how it can look different for people based on gender, based on masking, based on culture, based on the way that you grew up, based on if there's trauma involved, all these different things. And I started to see a lot of people on social media talking about autism in a way that I really related to. And so I actually did my master's thesis on more non-stereotypical presentations of autism. And it was throughout all of that that I ended up realizing that I related so much that it seemed really likely that I was autistic. And I did self-diagnose, but that didn't get rid of my imposter syndrome. So I ended up seeking out a professional assessment, and my assessment was over the span of 3 different sessions, and they were a few hours each session. I think it was like 12 hours in total. And the assessor also interviewed my boyfriend and my mom. And at the end, she diagnosed me with autism spectrum disorder level 1 and also obsessive compulsive disorder.
Wow. I guess that's why you're kind of like a person that's probably a neat freak to be like, oh my goodness, I gotta make sure everything's correct on this. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sure Rachel Ann, you can kind of relate to that, right? Just be like, oh, I need to clean everything. So yeah.
No, I love a good clean, and especially, I mean, it was the way I grew up. that my stepmom was like, if you're angry, you have to clean. And when you're a teenager, you get pissed a lot. So now, even as an adult, like when I'm really annoyed, I immediately start picking up. So yeah, it's nice to have things orderly.
I am sometimes kind of the same way. Like when it comes to like cleaning the room and everything, and sometimes it'll be such a mess that I'll be like, oh, I'll get to it now. I'll get to it back then soon. And the next thing you know, like I'm just not there yet. And then like it becomes a whole cycle of that, and it just becomes exhausting.
Oh, that could be understandable though, because sometimes you'd be lazy. It's like, oh, not right now, please, not right now. Yeah, it's just yes.
Yeah, like I know I need to clean my room, but then when someone else tells me like, "Hey, you need to clean your room," I kind of get pissed, you know?
Oh yeah, especially like if you were right about to do it and then someone tells you to do it and it's like, oh, well, I was gonna do it, but now that you said I have to do it, now I'm not gonna do it.
That gets me every time. I'm glad you can relate to that.
Now, Ashra, I was looking at one of your videos, and you were talking about like nature's Gatorade or something like that, which it was like you were looking for coconut water, but before it was actually just some broth that you had like that was already out of date. So, you know, do you usually like, like in your refrigerator, just like keep up the juices and all that stuff, And I'm sure also Rachel Ann probably relates to that. I'm sorry, Rachel. I'm sorry to bring that up to you. So, sorry about that.
Yes, okay. I know exactly what you're referring to. So that was in a YouTube video where I was gonna make something called Nature's Gatorade, which I learned about online. So it's basically coconut water, lime, and then a little bit of salt. And in my opinion, it really does taste very, very similar to Gatorade. And I really like drinking it, and it's really hydrating, and it's one of my favorite drinks. I usually always have coconut water in my fridge. Me and my boyfriend just got a Costco membership. And so we've been buying coconut water in bulk. So I'm really excited to have coconut water accessible at all times now since we go to Costco. But what you're referring to is in my YouTube video, I was trying to make nature's Gatorade and I accidentally took out chicken broth and I was like, why does this smell so weird? Because I thought it was the coconut water, but it was chicken broth. And then I realized after a few minutes what it was, and I got rid of the chicken broth, and then I got the coconut water instead. But yeah, Nature's Gatorade is really great. If any of you like Gatorade and you're looking for like a more natural alternative, I definitely recommend it. It's very good.
That sounds really delicious. And I've got to go out later this afternoon. So I'm like, that's on my list. And I love finding stuff online. Like I get new food interests. Recently, I've been doing onigiri, which is like those little rice triangles that you put little stuff inside of. But I'm curious, like, what other cool recipes that have you found online that you're like, this is now in rotation?
Yeah, and about the nature's Gatorade. Like I'm not a big Gatorade person. I drink Body Armor more often, but that nature's Gatorade does sound delicious. Just make sure I'm not gonna put the chicken broth like you did last time. Nah, for real. That was actually really funny.
Yeah, I definitely don't recommend doing it with chicken broth. But I have found I think one recipe that I found online that I have been really liking for a few years now is it's like this salmon bowl. So you do salmon and then rice and then mayo and you mix it up and then little pieces of seaweed. You can put it with the seaweed and eat it like that. And I really, really love making that. And then another thing is my boyfriend, he actually makes sourdough bread every week. So I don't make it, but he makes it from scratch every week, and I eat it pretty much every morning. And then we also always make chicken stock every week because we use it in a bunch of different recipes, which is why I got confused that time because I had it looked like the coconut water. Um, but yeah, we make chicken stock every week. We get like a whole chicken. We boil it with a bunch of vegetables like carrots, celery, onion, garlic, and then we put water and we put seasoning and stuff and we boil it for hours, like a few hours, so it gets really concentrated and then we make a bunch of different recipes with it throughout the week.
Ah, that kind of reminds me, Ashra, really, offhand, Rachel Ann was telling me how she makes bread actually. So she knows how to do that stuff.
I mean, yeah, I'm always admiring people though who do sourdough. I did try the sourdough craze during the pandemic and I promptly killed it. So I have not ventured back into sourdough land. I do a lot of the bread maker though. I use the bread maker. We haven't bought bread in a number of years now, which I mean is more because I don't buy it and my family has to eat the bread that I make. Maybe they would prefer that fluffy, gorgeous stuff from the store, but I force them to not, they have to eat the other stuff. So, your boyfriend must have a sourdough starter, has been keeping it alive for a long while.
Yeah, so he actually started making sourdough, I think at this point, probably like, gosh, maybe close to 3 years ago. And I think there has been maybe one or two times throughout that span where something happened with the starter and he had to kind of re get it going. But he's kept it going strong for a few years and he's gotten pretty good at making it. It does seem really detailed and tricky to me, so I don't think it's ever something I could do. But he's gotten really good at making it, and there will usually be like a few hours every week, like on one day every week, maybe on a Sunday, where he has to set aside probably like 4 hours to do all of the steps to make it for the next week. Because it's all timed. You probably know, like you have to like do the kneading process at different increments, but it pays off because it is very tasty. I'm wondering what kind of bread do you make in the bread maker?
Mine's just like a pretty simple everything in the bread maker and let it go. I had to do some adjustments because I'm at a higher altitude here in Colorado. And so I tried kind of the normal recipes and it kept falling flat. Like I could not get the bread to rise. So I did some research and was able to find a recipe that worked at this altitude. But I've got a question for you about so being diagnosed at 24, when you thought about the diagnosis and the way you approached and connected with food before that, did what seemed to click into place for you where you were like, oh, this makes more sense why I had this relationship to food, versus how other people might have a relationship to food?
That's a really good question. So there's a couple of things that come to mind for me. The first thing is that throughout my whole life, I've had like a very intense control over my food and a rigidity with my food. I think at times it even got into a kind of a point of being a bit disordered eating tendencies. So I have to be mindful of that now to not fall back into those patterns. But I can be very restrictive and controlling over my food intake. And I also I also have a lot of difficulty eating food that I haven't prepared myself or someone very close to me hasn't prepared. So, for example, if somebody were to give me food as a gift, if they baked me cookies or something, I would not be able to eat that. And it's always been a little hard for me to understand if that was more so related to being autistic or to OCD, because I think a little bit of it is like a fear of contamination, but a lot of it is also just like that kind of rigid mindset around wanting to know exactly how it was made and exactly what the ingredients are. I've definitely also had a lot of gastrointestinal issues, which can be related to being autistic. And that has affected my eating. And I've had so many allergy tests. And there were certain times in my life where I was avoiding entire groups of food, like I was avoiding gluten for a long time, because it was always this trial and error trying to figure out what was going on in my body, like my whole life. Like I said, I was always just trying to figure that out because of the struggles I was going through. But now I'm a lot more flexible with my eating, but I do believe that a lot of the previous rigidity was related to being autistic. And now that I know I'm autistic, I can make accommodations for myself. So I don't force myself to eat foods that other people have made for me. I eat a lot more intuitively now, and I think that I have like the disordered tendencies under a lot more control because I've been able to have more freedom around food with this newfound understanding of where the rigidity came from initially.
That's actually very interesting, especially when you brought up the gluten point. I remember when I was originally diagnosed at the age of 2, my mom had to like put me on like a strict diet of like gluten free and dairy free because at the time I was also dealing with a leaky gut. So being put on the gluten free diet also really helped with like gut health, and then I also had to be put on dairy free diet because of like the brain health specifically. Every time I ended up having dairy, once I got like off of the diet, I would end up starting like to regress, like 4 steps back. And then after that, it's like, well, now ever since then, like I've been off the gluten free and dairy free diet, and fast forward to today, I'm like doing a food blog and trying all these other restaurants here in Orlando, doing all these crazy things. And I never would have thought I would have gone from someone who had to be placed on a strict diet, which also caused me to be like a bit of a picky eater of what I eat, to being the foodie that I am today. And that is something I could actually relate to.
Yeah, and I was on a special diet when I was diagnosed, like at 2, like in the same with Nikko, but my thing was more about for behavioral purposes. I couldn't have certain sugars or certain dyes or something like that. Like my parents, my mom in particular, were always like when we go to the store, I always look at the nutrition facts thing to see like what was in there, how much sugar intake, how those type of things. Like I couldn't have oranges or red apples and those type of things though. So it's interesting that I made this show, the Autistic Delicatessen, to where I can have different things and it's okay. I can have red apples and oranges now and all that stuff, but it was just like a whole different thing of trying to understand the autistic process, you know, in terms of like how to navigate that, and it took me some time to accept certain stem parts of myself though, which like I don't know for you, Ashra, growing up, like if it was the same for you in terms of like, you already mentioned about your eating habits, but even before that, you were very just like cautious about certain things though.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I still have those same feelings now. I might even be a little bit, I think I might be a bit more picky now because I don't force myself anymore. Like when I was younger, when I would feel like I didn't want to eat something, a lot of times people would make me feel like I was being rude or I was being overly picky, and that made me feel bad. So I would kind of force myself to be uncomfortable in order to make other people happy. But now I don't do that anymore. And I honor my more intuitive feelings about food. Uh, and I don't really force myself to eat things because I honestly, I mean, to an extent, like while trying to, of course, like getting all the vitamins and nutrients and all of those things, like trying to maintain as healthy a diet as I can. I, in a lot of my support groups, this is something we talk about where it can feel really violating for somebody to try and make you eat something that you don't want to eat. Like a lot of autistic people might have pickier tendencies around certain vegetables or around certain textures. And instead of working with the person to try and find an alternative, a lot of times people are just forced to eat things that they don't want to eat, and that can feel so violating. So I try to honor what my body wants these days more, and I think that has resulted in a bit more pickiness, but I'm okay with that. I do tend to eat a lot of the same foods throughout the week on rotation.
Because that's usually what autistic people at times do though, like there was a little time I did that with like certain natural juices in the past. Like I like more of like when I was a kid, the apricot rather than the pineapple or papaya juices that I would see at the health food store, though, because of the taste and all that stuff. So when apricots were out of season, it's just like, okay, I had to go to the pineapple or the papaya stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, all right. So yeah. But I really like the apricot because like I would drink it from Lakewood Juices. It's like a company here in Florida. I'm also in Florida. I'm around the Tampa area. Nikko's in Orlando, but but when I was a kid, like in South Florida, that's what I would have and all that stuff. Since I couldn't have the regular juices and all that stuff as a kid, though. So
I
yeah.
just want to say I've never heard anyone pronounce apricot. I always have said it as apricot. You're the only person I've ever heard say apricot. That is hilarious.
Well, it was apricot or apricot, so it's like it was different. It was different fluctuations over the years, Nikko. So
I'm
yeah.
an apricot person. It's a good solid A.
It's
Apricot.
holiday.
Okay, yes. So it's apricot. It's like it's whatever with that.
We're gonna be
So
debating this for a long time.
yes, so
Well,
definitely.
what I really like enjoy about hearing this is I feel like we have such an interesting food culture in America, or in general, of like, oh, you eat what's on your plate and you don't complain. And I think it overrides the body's need, the self-intuitive need of the body. And I love that there's that you found more acceptance in what you needed, and that intuitive space, and that like self-acceptance and compassion, and saying, hey, there's nothing wrong with me not wanting to eat cookies other people made. I
Right.
don't know what they put in them, or did not be or where they put them. And I think that's fair. You can accept a gift in the spirit's given, and you aren't required to then consume all of it in order for the gift to be perfect. It can just be that gesture.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, for you, Ashra, like, what are some of your favorite like drinks that you like to have, or even like eats? If you do it like in a short summary or something.
Okay, let me think about this. So, I like bread with butter a lot. I love butter. I'm a big butter person. I'll even admit sometimes I just eat butter. Uh,
Hey, this is a judge-free zone. This is a judge-free zone.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I really like that. Um, I like steak a lot. I like potatoes a lot. I'm a big fan of stone fruit, so I like peaches, I like nectarines, I like plums. I also really like berries, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries. I also am a big fan of like exotic fruits. So I like dragon fruit. I like passion fruit a lot, star fruit, mango, all of those types of things. Vegetables, I like certain vegetables, but I definitely have some textural issues. So I kind of go through phases. Like I'll really like tomatoes for a bit, and then maybe I'll have a bad experience, and then I can't eat tomatoes for a very, very long time, which happened to me recently. Um, and then I really like chicken soup, and I put a lot of lemon in it. I love sour foods. I love lemonade. And then I really like coconut water, of course. And then I also love espresso. I make espresso every day. I make a latte every day. I actually have it right here.
Sometimes you
Uh,
just gotta espresso yourself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Espresso yourself, Nikko. Yeah, I'm sure that's the thing right there. Yeah, but that looks good though. I like lattes too as well. So yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
When you mentioned steak, Ashra, how do you like your steak cooked? Because I know there are some people that like the medium rare, the medium well, all these other things. How do you like your steak cooked?
I would say I like it medium rare. I like it to have a bit of a pinkness to it. But whenever I'm making it myself, I have a tendency to overcook it by accident.
That's my problem too. Sometimes I end up cooking it a little bit to the medium well side, but medium
Yeah.
rare all the way. I think you just became my new bestie after that.
Yeah.
Yay!
I think medium rare is the best. And I like putting a lot of butter. I like to cook it in a lot of butter. But yeah, whenever we're gonna have steak, I try to have my boyfriend cook it. Also, same with chicken, because oh God, I can't cook chicken. I also have a lot of sensory issues with chicken.
Okay. Like I'm sure for even like baked chicken or grilled chicken, right, Ashra?
Yeah, I I don't know. I have a lot of issues with chicken for some reason. Like I can't prepare it myself because I get grossed out by the chicken, and then I always end up overcooking it, so it tastes like really, really, really rubbery. And then also, I don't like all the texture issues. Like, there's a lot of different textures with chicken. Like, there's some pieces that are more soft and some that are more hard, and that is a problem for me. So I kind of have a hard time with chicken. Anytime we have it for dinner, I end up not really eating it.
See, because I'm also a
Yeah.
really big chicken guy, but the only time I don't usually have chicken is when I'm having it in ramen, is because sometimes they usually get it a little rubbery. So I always, every time I'm at a ramen spot, I'm always getting the miso or tonkatsu ramen with pork belly, never the chicken.
I always get the one with the pork belly too. That's my favorite.
Yeah, but grilled chicken is good. Like they have a good grilled chicken from Pollo Tropical. That's like that's like, you know, a chain restaurant here in Florida, you know, but I don't know if they have it in California. They probably do. I don't know. But that's what I would get at times, you know. Although like KFC's grilled chicken and their crispy stuff is good still, you know. How about for you, Rachel?
I'm a big chicken fan, but we have a little bit of a mixed family. My husband really likes beef. I'm like beef, but I really like chicken. For me, it's getting a rotisserie chicken every week because you can just pull it apart. You've got the bones to go into broth, but then like today I chopped up the breast meat and I made like a chicken salad, or if I'm just feeling like I need a pop of protein, then I can go eat a leg or a thigh or something like that. And my little one, he now will eat more chicken if I just put a drop of barbecue sauce on each piece of chicken. So it's a great way to get easy protein into him. So I'm a big fan of the rotisserie chicken.
I like rotisserie chicken also, but I mostly will eat the skin and then not eat the meat. And then
Part.
I do like chicken. I like grilled chicken also. I just need it to be really, really thin. Like, I don't like if it's thick. I need it to be thin. And then the texture has to be right.
Yeah, I feel like there's something about the skin of rotisserie chicken that is so fire, I swear. There's something about it. It's the same thing when I went to this one restaurant, this Puerto Rican spot close to me called Crocante. This place, if you don't know, this place was actually featured on Somebody Feed Phil on Netflix. And when I found out that it was one of the first spots featured on there, I immediately went there and tried their rotisserie pork belly. Oh my God, it was revolutionary.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. All right. Well, anyway, Ashra, we would just like to thank you for coming on to our show and having this like conversation with us. So how should people find you as well as your podcast on social media?
They can find me on Instagram. It's at Ashra Louisa. I'm also newly on TikTok. It's at Ashra Louisa, but it's 2 A's at the end. And then on YouTube, it's at Ashra Louisa. And my podcast is Autistic After Hours, and it's findable on my YouTube or on Spotify or Apple.
Well, Ashra, we just like to thank you again for coming on to the show and coming to the Autistic Delicatessen and really showing our audience about the life of being an autistic person, as well as knowing how to have good foods, as well as, you know, nature's lemonade or something, or Gatorade. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. It was really fun to talk with you all.
Well, folks, we hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Autistic Delicatessen. Make sure you like and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel.
You can also find us on Instagram, so like us there and come leave us a comment. You can also find us on Spotify, leave us a comment there, and we would love your comments on YouTube as well. Until next time.
What's on your plate is hell